Welcome. For those of you who don't know us, my name is Roman.
And my name's Anna Lee, and we are from Centered Connections. We are intuitive life coaches who specialise in conscious relationships.
And we're both really excited about tonight. Tonight's topic is huge, lack of communication and how that impacts your relationships. And this is part of our 8-week series looking at the most common challenges people face in their relationships. And this is going to be the basis, kind of the foundation for everything that we're going to take a look at.
Yeah.
It's going to be interwoven into every topic we
Every
kind of
topic
look
that
at.
we look at, yeah, it's definitely the basis of everything.
Yeah. So before we get into it, we just want to give some people some time to
Jump on?
to see if they can join us live. So we'll take a few moments to do that. And we just kind of want to enjoy the beautiful
It's a
serenity.
beautiful view here. We came out here this morning to do some filming. It's a beautiful spot out here in Melbourne, and it's really close to our house, and we didn't even know that it existed until Roman came across it.
Yeah.
And it's just such a serene place. So we thought we'd bring you out here into nature and take a look at the beauty.
So I'm just seeing who's coming on. Yeah, it's a beautiful place, and we just see how important it is for us to connect to nature, to kind of, what's the word, to co-create with nature. Like everything that we do, we really want to co-create with nature, because it just has such powerful wisdom in what it's got. So
Because nature just is,
yeah,
you know, and I think it is all, this journey is about just accepting what is. And nature is the perfect example of just being.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful being out here. So do you want to just get into it?
We'll get started.
Yeah, we'll get started. So what tonight is lack of communication, and communication is such a big topic.
It's a huge topic.
Yeah, there's so many aspects and avenues that it goes into and how it plays out, and that's why I said at the start, this will play out in a lot of other topics that we'll be covering. But the way we want to look at communication tonight is through a lens of responsibility.
And taking self-responsibility of how you're communicating in your relationship.
Yeah, because I think where we see in our own life and the people we coach and friends and family, where the biggest breakdown in relationship happens is when there's a lack of responsibility. And this may be difficult for some people to hear, right? Some people are not going to like
Hearing
they may
it.
not like
I know I
hearing
didn't.
what we got to say tonight. But it's something that's very important, and that it's going to make a huge difference if you're willing to look at yourself and take responsibility.
And be honest.
Yeah.
Honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Because that's the hardest thing. You know, we all want honesty in our lives, but sometimes we're not even honest with ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So if while you're watching or when you're watching the replay of this video, like, this is going to take some work on your part to be willing to take responsibility for your life and how you are in your relationships. Because we could look at what does the other person do and how do they communicate, and they're doing this to me and they're doing that to me, but there's little impact we can do and have when it's viewed in that way.
because we can't control outside of us.
Yeah.
And the only thing that we can control is ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's very hard to try to change someone's view or, you know, the way that they're communicating with you. The only thing that you can do is change the way that you're communicating with them.
Yeah. And we see that a lot in when we're coaching is people come to us, how do I change my partner? It's like,
That's a
how
big
do
one.
I fix them so I can actually be happy? Because I'm all good, I'm happy and I have everything handled. It's just my partner. If they could only do this and this, then my life would be great. So they come to us and go, how do I fix and change my partner?
And this is all like from our own experiences, and like Roman said, with people that we coach and our friends and our family, we see it, it's a very common thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're not gurus, we're not anything like that. This is just our experience and our truth.
Yeah.
And it's up to you to discern for yourself, you know, what you take from this tonight.
Yeah.
So, you know, there may be things that you may not agree with, or there may be things that you really resonate with. So take what you need and then leave the rest.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's important to find your own truth, because
Yeah.
this is our truth.
Yeah.
And what we resonate with, and what we connect, and what has helped us, and what we've seen has helped our clients. But you got to find your own truth and who you connect with. You know, it's just got to be yours.
Yeah.
And also, what's important to see, what we're going to be covering, is there's going to be different stages that you're going to be at. And it's important to know which stage you're at also, because this kind of stuff doesn't always work, right? Where we take responsibility and we create our reality and we do all these things. We have times where there's 3 stages of relationship. There's codependency, right? And that's the first stage of relationship, where I need Anna Lee for happiness or to make me feel something.
Your happiness depends on the other person, and vice versa.
Vice versa. And then there's a second stage, which is independence, which is you find out, like, I create my reality,
And
I take
create
responsibility and all that sort of stuff, and that's independence, right? And that's kind of the next stage we move on to. And then we've got the third stage, which is
interdependence.
Interdependence.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is a mouthful. And that's the third stage, and that's where you become independent, but in that independence you want to be with another.
Yeah, so you realize that you are separate in terms of your reality and how you perceive your reality, and you're responsible for your own reality, and everyone's got their own reality, and you acknowledge and honor that in everyone else. But then in interdependence, it's like, you know that you are independent, but you are longing for that connection to bring you, and it dissolves the boundaries.
Yeah, it's where you literally dissolve boundaries.
And you're connected and you're one.
Yeah. And it's a big subject, but this would really support whoever's watching this to really see where you're at, because
in which stage
is going to play out differently how you take responsibility. So what we recommend and suggest, if you're interested, we have a 3-part video series about these 3 stages of relationships and how to move through them. And it goes in a lot more depth of how that plays out at each stage and what's the impacts and how to overcome them. And that will really support you. If you're interested, just inbox us or comment below.
And it's free.
And it's free, right? It's a free gift.
Yeah.
It's something we offer to people because we see it really supports people in their relationships.
And it supported us to see where we're at. And it's important to note as well that it isn't just a stage that you move through. So in one aspect you're in codependency, then you're into independence, and then interdependence. But it's more that you've got moments of this in your life.
Yeah.
So we experience moments of codependency, we experience moments of independence, and we experience moments of interdependence.
Yeah.
So it's not a thing that you move up a ladder
and just stay there.
Yeah. It's more of a moment to moment thing.
Yeah.
So like Roman said, comment below, free gift, or inbox us and we'll send you the link to the 3-part video series.
Yeah. So let's have a
look.
Let's
go into
let's
it.
dive into it, right? So let's have a look at what responsibility actually looks like and how that plays out, and what are some challenges in relationships and how they play out.
With communication.
And I think a big one is we see, and we have a lot in our own experience, is blaming the other for a certain experience that we're feeling and not being able to communicate in a way that's effective to be able to get across our feelings and emotions and how we perceive that situation.
Because we tend to then project on the other person and we're not saying exactly what we're feeling, we're just lashing out and blaming.
Yeah. And projection is a big thing in relationships.
Yeah.
It's like, you make me feel like this, and it's the other person's fault.
But it triggers something, doesn't it? It's a trigger to past wounds, you know, family stuff, inner child stuff, and that's something that we're going to cover in the next video about those triggers. But the projection is a reaction to something that your partner has said or done, and then you project it back onto them to make it their fault for why you're feeling these old wounds and pains.
And when you're in projection, it's very hard to communicate effectively.
Yeah.
Because you're in your
Ego.
8-year-old child, or you know, your 6-year-old child that's been wounded, and your ego comes out and lashes out at that partner because it triggered something within you that's already within you.
Yeah, exactly. Relationships bring out what's already inside of you. It's not that the relationship causes that. It's what's already in there with you. Yeah. It brings it all out to the surface.
Yeah. And when we're not responsible for what's moving within us and we project, it's very hard to communicate effectively and get across, because we're in reaction. Yeah. And that's what responsibility is. It's the ability to respond. Responsibility, being able to respond effectively. But when we're in our ego and we're driven by something else, and there's something else moving, and we're talking through that pain, there's no room
for anything
else to show up. It's just we're communicating through that pain. Yeah. So what we need to do in that moment is like, okay, what just happened? It's like literally in that moment you need to, either if you can't communicate, you literally need to take a moment
to yourself and really just stop and go, whoa, what was I trying to do there? Like, what am I trying to achieve? Do I want to communicate from this space? Yeah.
Is this what I'm committed to?
Exactly.
Is this what I want in my relationship?
Yeah.
Is this the type of communication I'm committed to? Because there's certain commitments that we want in the relationship, but when we're triggered, when emotions happen, we forget about that. That goes all out the window.
Totally. Right? Because we're that wounded person. Yeah. You know, and we're in survival mode in that moment. Like we're just trying to survive, and our ego comes in to protect us from getting hurt again. Yeah. So it's very difficult to communicate effectively what's moving through you. So it's really important to take the time out and just reflect on what's coming up and what's moving through you, and then to be able to step back into the conversation from a space of your heart. Yeah. And actually communicate well. You know, wow, what you just said triggered something in me that made me feel like, or took me back to when I was young.
Yeah. See, when we can talk about in relationship as because when we talk about you did this. But instead of when we can talk about I feel like this, like I feel like this when you did X. So when we take responsibility, it's your feeling, it's your emotion. And then the other partner doesn't have to get triggered. Because when you start off with, you're making me feel like this.
It's an attack.
It's an attack.
They take it as an attack, and their defense mechanisms
come up, and they're all like, well, you're making me feel like this. And then we start bringing stuff. Remember when you did this, and remember and this. And then it's just this big tantrum, and there's no communication. Yeah. There's just, the lights are on, but no one's home. Yep. It's just ego. Yeah. So when you can communicate, and it takes some practice and some time, right? And this is why it's so important to have someone that can support you through this, that can see it from the outside. Because sometimes when you're in it, it's like, no, this is how it is. Yeah. They are making me feel like this. Yeah. If they could only say it differently.
And I've definitely experienced that in my last relationship. I was with my last partner for 9 years, and for that 9 years we were just a mess. And I completely blamed him for everything that was happening in the relationship. And I wasn't until I left that relationship that I actually looked at it from an outside perspective and saw that I had to take responsibility for the part that I actually played in that. Yeah. Because I was only seeing him through the filters of what I perceived him to be.
Yeah. Because see, in relationships, most relationships, like the old template is we talk about we bring 50-50. So I bring 50 and Ali brings 50 and we make 100% in
Together.
the relationship together. But we're in this new template, it's all about I bring 100% responsibility.
Yes.
And if
And
Annalie brings 100% responsibility, we have true power. But the interesting twist on that is, if I bring 100% responsibility and Annalie only brings 40% or 60%, this is not about going, well, you're not bringing 100% responsibility, why aren't you? Step up. That's blaming, going, fixing and changing. But what if you could be, it's like, that kind of person that just goes, no, I'm just going to bring 100% responsibility. Regardless of what your partner is bringing. And you create that space for the other person to step up without trying to fix them, without trying to change them, but just go, this is what I'm bringing to the table. And that's a very different way of looking at a relationship. It's like if your partner is snoring and you go, how am I responsible for this? You go, how can I support them in this? Instead of like, oh, shut up and you're so annoying. But it's like an example,
and then you
right?
build resentment towards them every time you go to sleep.
Yes. So it's like, and that's the big thing also, holding resentments in relationships.
Yeah.
And it's all those things that aren't said. And then it's like those triggers happen and that resentment just bubbles up. It's like this, you know, ball that we keep holding down, these feelings and emotions, stuff that's being unsaid, and we bottle it down, and then something happens and all this just comes up, all
Totally
this emotion explodes. And then, like I said, there's no one home. It's just all this unsaid stuff that comes up and we get triggered and we blame. Yeah.
And then, like, I think we touched on something earlier this afternoon that we were talking about, you know, the energy behind what you're saying, because you could be saying to your partner, I love you, you know, I support you, but underneath all of that and what's not being said, there's an energy, and people can feel that energy. You know, they'll start to question whether you're actually supportive of them or you actually understand where they're coming from. And it's important to actually communicate what it is that is actually there for you. And
what's
it's the hard, what's being unsaid, and it takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable in a relationship. We know that through experience. But in all honesty, it's such a gift to be able to open yourself up to someone, to another person, and to be yourself, to be all that you are, craziness and all. It's such a gift to be able to share that with someone who's open to receiving that. And it's all about setting up context with your partner.
Because this was a big challenge for me when we first started going out. And this is kind of how to hold the space and how to create the context to be able to communicate openly, like what just Annalie shared, because it's not very easy to do without creating a context. And this is something I struggled with for a while. Because I'd come home from work and I used to do physical work and I'd kind of be exhausted and tired and I'd want to just relax. And just my normal thing, I'd just be like, hey, how was your day? Expecting a small response, or like I would, you know, because when Annalie goes, how's your day? I kind of would go, yeah, my day was good. What? You know, did some stuff and painted some walls and plastered some walls, and that's it. Then I ask Annalie, and she's got so much stuff. She's like, and this happened, and that happened, and and I'm just like, I couldn't take her in, because I was like, whoa, I'm like, just ask how your day was. I didn't want to hear your life story of your day and how it went. And that used to annoy Annalie, because she's like, you don't listen to me.
Yeah, that triggered me. It triggered a lot of stuff for me that I wasn't being heard or seen. And we definitely had to work and navigate through being able to actually just open up and say, hey, like, you know, when you said that, that actually made me feel like this, and it made me feel unappreciated, and it made me feel like this. And taking ownership of those feelings. Because they aren't his feelings, they're mine.
And for me, it was a way for me to be responsible in that aspect was to go, okay, I'm feeling tired. To go to Annalie, instead of knowing, if I ask her how her day was, I know what's going to be the response.
He knows, because I'm always talking.
I know what's going to happen. So what I started to do is go, hey babe, I'm just going to go take a shower. I'm going to take 10 minutes. I need to come into myself, relax, come in, and then I'll ask her, and then I'll be able to hold her in what she needs to communicate, and I can be present instead of thinking I'm too tired and I can't be bothered. And
because you
oh
want
my
to
God,
please.
yeah.
His thing was that he
Yeah,
wanted to
I wanted
please
to
me
please,
and
yeah.
always be, you know, and that was the whole energy thing that I was talking about, is that he'd ask me how my day was, but he didn't really want to hear about my day. But he'd say, yeah, how was your day? He'd still ask me. But
Yeah.
then the energy around that was that you don't, like you could
Yeah,
feel that,
yeah.
that he wasn't
What's
present.
underneath that?
What underneath, yeah. And he
Yeah.
wasn't present with me. So when he could actually communicate with me and say, hey, I'd like to take, you know, 10 minutes, get out of these clothes and just relax for a bit, and then I'm all yours.
Yeah.
I could then respect that and just go, okay, he needs his time, and not take it personally. Because that's another thing that people struggle with, and I know I struggled with it so much, and it wasn't just in relationships, but also, you know, at work, you know, with other people, friends.
Yeah.
And if they'd say comments or say or do something, you know, you would take it personally and take it all on board for yourself, thinking that you're the problem. So it's really, really important to communicate, like, what's going on.
Yeah. And what's really going on. Like, it's sometimes also when Annalie's talking and I'm not present, like, she feels it.
I feel it.
And when I pretend, but when I could say, hey babe,
Yeah.
I'm just not there, I'm a bit out of it, can we have this conversation another time, because I'm just not there. It's better to do that than sit there and pretend you're listening, and then no one says anything, and there's resentment that builds.
Yeah.
It might be on a subconscious level, but it feels off, right? So if that happens again and again and again, there's a lot of resentment built, and there's lack of communication. There's a wall that starts to get built, and we don't know why.
Yeah.
But literally, for us, it's kind of like, what happened? It was all fine, but all of a sudden we feel disconnected.
Yeah.
And it's because it's of all the unsaid things.
Yeah.
And it could be small, it could be big, but if there's something there and you're not saying it, that builds a wall in your relationship. A barrier to your communication. But when you can say just what's there in the moment, or sometimes I'll go off in la la land and I just go, oh babe, I was out, I was gone. Can you say that again?
Yeah.
And for her not to take that personally.
Yeah. And it's very hard to do. Just telling you.
Yeah.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
You have to have a commitment to yourself to be responsible. You have to be honest with yourself. And those are really hard things to do, but honestly, it takes a whole lot of pressure off yourself for feeling responsible for someone else's happiness.
And because that's what we also say a lot, like we take not take responsibility.
We take other people's feelings.
Yeah, on board.
And
we
that's
make it our
that's
own.
a codependent.
codependency,
Yeah. It's like other people's moods affect your mood. So if I'm really excited and Roman comes home and I can't wait to tell him about this thing that happened, and then he responds with, yeah, whatever, then that affects my mood.
Yeah.
So, and we're dependent on each other's reactions to get what we need from them.
Yeah, so it's like sometimes we only share to get a good reaction.
Yeah.
And if we don't get a certain reaction, then we're like, wow.
Yeah.
We make a big deal about it.
Yeah. Or we don't. And I think that follows on from what not communicating what is actually there. And then what that looks like is it actually, and this was very hard for me to accept for myself, because what that actually turns into is manipulation. You then start to manipulate what you say to the other person to get the response. So you go at it a roundabout way to get what you want in the end.
Yeah.
So then you're not being true
Yeah.
to yourself.
Yeah. And most people are very manipulative, and we pretend that we're
We're not. And that was me for a very long time. I didn't want to accept that I was manipulative. But in all aspects, you know, when we are in a codependent relationship, there's no hiding that. I mean, like, the manipulation is there. You know, you may not be able to see it, but when you step outside of it and you actually look back, you can see where you are being manipulative.
Yeah. And another issue of people's lack of communication and the barriers between it is this blame and fault and
I'm right.
having complaints. And complaints on your partner are a huge barrier to your ability to be able to communicate effectively what you want. Because when you have a certain complaint about your partner, like it could be a silliest little thing. It's kind of like, for a man, right?
For their woman.
For their woman, right? Oh, she's always busting my balls. She's always calling. That's a big one, right? For men, she's always on my case and she's always calling me and never giving me my space. But if we take a responsibility and have a look at, like, why is she doing that? Because when we hold a complaint, there's something we get out of it. There's a certain feeling that we get in that complaint, whether it's frustration, there's anger, there's certain feeling that we get when we hold a complaint. And there's a certain payoff that we get. We either get a payoff about being right about the situation, we get to avoid responsibility, we get to be justified, we get all these payoffs. But what we don't get to see, and we get to be right and all that stuff, it's really juicy, right? It's this payoff. But what we don't get to see in the relationship is we lose so much. It comes at a big cost. It costs us, our love and affinity with our partner. It costs us our liveness. When you're in, this complaint constantly, how do you feel? You feel like shit. But we hold on to that complaint to avoid responsibility. Because then we'd have to take a look at ourselves and go, how am I causing my partner to always say and be on my back? Or busting my chops, as we say, right? In Australia, wherever you're listening.
Busting your chops.
And that's how men say, oh, she's breaking my balls, she's doing this. But it's like, why is she doing that? Because we don't want to take a look at ourselves and go, how are we creating? What part are we taking if we take 100% responsibility? How is this showing up? What am I doing in that relationship for it to show up? Or for women, my man never cleans, he never helps me out, he never does this. When we hold that complaint, how are you feeling? Why is that happening? And I see that for women a lot of the time is they want to control the situation and they don't allow their man to show up.
No. And I think before we go into how we communicate as men and women, an important thing that I learn in relationship is that you actually teach the other person how to treat you.
Yeah.
And that's all a part of when you start to take self-responsibility, you start to see how you're enabling that person to treat you the way that you perceive them.
Boom. Yeah, and that's a big one, right? Because we think the person is acting because that's how they're acting. But it's like, how have we allowed this situation to go on? And sometimes taking responsibility is leaving the situation.
Yes, and that was for me.
Yeah, and that's a big
one.
That was
a big one for me.
There's a lot of people that we see is they go and complain to anyone that will listen. And they're these martyrs underneath and everything happens to them and there's nothing that they can do.
About
the situation, and they complain about that situation to everyone that will listen. But sometimes what responsibility is actually going, okay, I'm not having this. I'm not standing for this.
I'm worth more than this.
I'm worth more. And it's sometimes leaving the situation. And that's what sometimes is needed in that relationship for both people to grow.
Exactly.
But if we're not taking responsibility and we're just blaming that person, then we're victims and there's nothing that we can do and there's no way we can communicate with that person effectively.
No. And we enable the situation. So then what happens is we're actually standing in the way of someone else's process to grow. Like as people who are codependent, we want to fix, we want to, help the person, but it's like if we keep enabling that behaviour to be treated in such a way that's not unconditionally loving for us, we're actually standing in their process to actually growing, because it sometimes needs that person to leave the situation for that other person to actually grow.
Yeah, and that's, yeah.
Yeah. So we can go into the communication, because I know I grabbed you
that's
off
okay,
that.
That's okay. And what was the communication? Where were we
About
heading?
how we were talking about how men communicate and how women.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, this was big as well, learning how to communicate. Because as men, and this is more for women to understand and not to beat your man with a stick to be able to communicate, right? Because this was, and for me, I've done a lot of personal development, and I thought I was very connected to my emotions and express myself and talk and
then
able
he
to
met
do all
me.
those things, right? And then I met Annalie, and I was like, holy shit, I have no idea. But I used to communicate what I wanted people to see, what I perceived as look good, even if it didn't sound. But people are like, oh wow, you're so open, and you're so like, wow, it's amazing. But I knew I was comfortable with that. But when coming to the relationship with Annalie, what I started to learn is that I'm so internal, and as men, this is for
And this
men,
is for most men.
men are very internal.
Because you haven't been taught. You've been taught that it's not okay to show your emotions, that it's not manly for you to be in touch with your emotions.
Yeah. And this was very big for me coming to the relationship with Annalie, because like I said, I'd come home from work and she'd be like, how's your day? And for me, automatic response was just, how's your day at work? And so it was fine. I just did some work, I did my bits and pieces, and I'm done.
And then for me, I wanted to create that connection and know what was going on in his world. And it wasn't, and for me, I was communicating, how was your day? But I wasn't actually communicating, hey, what's going on in your head right now?
What are you feeling?
How,
what was your experience of your day? And that never clicked for me until we changed our language. And I started to see, holy shit.
Communicate what we actually wanted.
Yeah, and then because I used to bottle stuff up and then it would explode because I had stress about finances or work and about the kids or whatever. I had all this stuff moving through, but I didn't know how to communicate it. I just bottle it up and everything is okay, kind of moving along, and until it kind of got to a point where it erupted. And this is what we see in men, right? With the violence and all that, because men suppress their emotions and hold it all down and unable
because
and
it's not
knowing
okay
how to express them until they erupt when they have a drink or whatever it is, and they erupt and explodes in rage. So it's not anger, it's rage. Healthy anger is good when you can express anger when it's empowered, it's integrated, and it's powerful. Anger is very powerful energy to move, but most of the time what we see in relationship, it's rage. It's like gone to a point beyond anger and it's expressed out of rage. And what I started to see in the relationship is I need to communicate those things quickly. Like if something got triggered at work and I just come home and this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm going through, and dealing with that emotion right away.
Right there and then.
Right there and then. And
it's not just for men, that's for women as well.
Yes.
Because I do that too.
Yeah, and I just wanted more to say for men, because this is so prominent for men, and for women not to knock their men on the head, because they don't know how to. They don't know how to communicate. If they knew, they would. They just haven't been taught how to communicate their emotions, how to express what they feel, because they're just like, I'm fine, because there's so much in their head. They're not connected to their body and how they feel. So have some compassion is what I'm getting at for your men. Because sometimes they don't know how to communicate, and we see this so many times where women come and go, why isn't my man communicating? How do I fix him? How do I change him? Don't fix him or change him, just love him.
Exactly. And for the women, I think how we navigated through this was being able to have that compassion for you, because I understand and I feel for all the men that still feel that it's not okay to be in touch with their emotions. Like for women, that is so incredibly powerful for us to witness our men being so in touch with their emotions, because that's what we long for. To have that, create that intimacy and that connection with each other, where we can just be vulnerable with each other and feel safe and loved and held. And it's about women, like for me, going into this relationship with Roman, it was very much about controlling. And I had to get an answer out of him right away. It had to be said a certain way, otherwise I'd screw up my nose, and if it wasn't the way that I wanted, I'd chuck a tantrum. Like it really taught me how to actually create space for him And just even our whole relationship, like when we met, when we first met, it was very much, you know, like after a couple of weeks, I started to develop feelings, and I was like, oh, what are we? Like, are we going out? Are we date? Like, I don't know, what are we, you know? And then there's that pressure then you put on your man to get an answer for what you want.
Yeah.
And then we create this like, what would you call it? Like,
yeah, it's a pressure energy
it's
where
a pressure
a man
energy.
wants to surrender and retreat.
He wants to retreat, and then he wants to run away.
Because as men, we want freedom.
Yeah.
We want to feel free, and that's the biggest fear. And this was my biggest fear in a relationship, is losing my freedom.
Yeah.
But what we'll learn is we can actually have both. I can totally be free and be in a relationship. And this is where Anna Lee had to
create the space and let him come to me.
Yeah.
And be okay with just letting go of any attachment to what his response would be or how he would communicate with me. And if he wasn't in the space to communicate with me, just to let him go, let him retreat in his man cave.
Let me kind of grovel and do my thing. And that is so, like, from a man's point of view, for the women, like when Annalie was able to do that, when I could have my stuff and she didn't try to fix me or try to control it or try to make it wrong or try to go, well, you need to do this or you need to do that, have a look at this. When she just allowed me to just be me, and if I wanted to go off and have a little tantrum and whatever I was feeling, and for her not to take it personally, just gave me so much freedom, because I used to go and make myself wrong. If I got frustrated or there's stuff that
there's a lot of beating up on yourself that happens.
Because I used to make myself wrong because I knew I should know better, and I tried to fix, and I'm like, why? And it just got worse. And this is what men go internal, and like their mind just starts racing, or they go numb.
Yeah.
Or they just switch off, shut down. And you got to allow your men to have that numbness, because that's their safety mechanism, to just shut down, switch off, watch the fire, watch TV, get out. And allow them to do that, because they will, if you do it long enough. If you just do it once and then go, nothing's changed.
No,
well,
it's work. It takes work.
And this is where responsibility comes. You go, how can I create this space for my man? How can I do this for my man? Because it's gonna grow your relationship. But you can't do it just to get an outcome.
No.
This is not in order to, like, oh, I'll give him space so then I can have what I want.
Yeah.
This is literally
purely love
purely
for
love.
them.
And that's the new template, right? This is where you just take responsibility and come from the space of love. And inside of that pure love, unconditional love, magic happens. Like, literally, I started to transform inside of her just allowing me to be that. And it was the same for me to do that for
me, because I would shut down.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I thought I was a good communicator. I thought I was a really good communicator, just being women, because we're so in tune with our feelings. But what I saw was that I was emotional. It was emotional, and I was collapsing into my emotions and not actually being an observer of my emotions. And I think touching on the giving men sort of space and allowing them just to be in whatever they are in, whether it's anger, whether it's frustration, I think it's an important thing to note that, you know, we have to come to accept those feelings within us first, because whatever we sort of like resist in our partner is what we're actually resisting within ourselves. So if we're not okay with frustration or anger, then we're going to project that onto our men or onto our women, and we're going to want to shut it down in them because we're not okay with it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with, you know, like expressing love or expressing, you know, the want or the longing to be close to your man. And, you know, if he's not okay with that within himself, to be like, to want to be with me, then he's going to try to shut that down in me. Yeah. So it's so important. That's why the inner work is so important, to come to an acceptance of yourself wholly, so that you can hold another person in whatever they're in.
Yeah. And that's the communication, right? It's being able to be held in whatever space you are. And there can't be any resentment. There can't be any blame, because you can't hold them in love when you're trying to be right about something.
Yeah.
You're either right or you choose love. And most of the time, people choose being right over love.
And that's more out of a fear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's more out of a
Yeah.
fear when you're coming from a space of that. And that's the whole, you know, the ego and the heart.
Yeah.
You know, and this is the journey that we're taking, is that we're moving from the head and moving it into the heart and communicating from the heart.
Yeah. It's a heart communication.
It is.
It's a heart intelligent communication, and it's so powerful, because your mind wants to make them wrong, and your mind wants to judge them, and your mind wants to do that, but all your heart wants to do is connect and love.
Yeah.
And when we can come from that place, that's where true communication comes. That's where true power, and there's barriers get dissolved inside communicating from your heart. And it's learning how to hold each other. And I think that's the biggest key in communicating, is being able to communicate what you want.
What you want.
And in a way that you set up a context.
Yeah.
So like what we said, it's like, hey babe, can I have 10 minutes of your purest attention? I've got something really important to say. Because then I can hold her for 10 minutes. I know I've got to be present.
His
I'm
listening
there
will be
for
very
10
different.
minutes. But compared to like, can you listen to me? And I'm like, fuck, for how long? Is it going to be for an hour, for 2? I don't have a container where I can hold her. But if she goes, hey, I've got something important, can you give me, 20 minutes of your undivided attention? I've got something really important to say to you. I can hold that. I can be that. I can hold her in that space, and that's the same for her.
Yeah.
Or you create a space where you go, hey babe, something I'm really scared to share. And I'm really afraid. So it's
stating what's moving through the body. And it's an embodied awareness of what, because your emotions aren't just up here.
Yeah.
They flow through your body.
Yeah.
And it's important to acknowledge where you're feeling those emotions.
Yeah.
If you're feeling nervous, you tend to feel that in your stomach. Or your heart starts beating really fast. And it's important just to acknowledge that, so you're not floating into your emotions and getting lost in them.
Yeah.
You're actually bringing it down into the body so that you can express it through the throat and through the voice.
Yeah. Because most people collapse into their emotions, and then there's no being able to communicate. And that's the issue. When we collapse into our emotion, we can't communicate clearly. Another thing that I want to touch upon is listening. And this is such a big thing, because we think listening is like a passive kind of thing. Kind of someone talks and we listen, and it's passive. But it's not. Like, people's self-expression exists and lives in you. So have you ever had someone, what we were talking about before, right? Someone's talking and they're in la la land, and then they're not present, they're not listening, they're kind of off with the fairies. How is your communication? Are you expressive? Are you fully self-expressed? Are you alive? No, you kind of start shutting down, right?
Because you know that they're not receiving you.
Yeah. So your listening creates gold in the other person. So when you can be, this goes two ways, right?
Yeah.
So when you can be responsible for your listening and go, wow, how I listen affects that person, you're taking responsibility, right? But you can't go, well, he's not listening to me, he should listen to me better. It doesn't work that. This is all about you and taking your own responsibility. This is to give you tools how to be able to listen and communicate effectively. So your listening impacts your partner, and their self-expression lives within you.
Yeah.
Doesn't live with them.
Yeah.
So when you truly can be present and listen and be there, you watch them flourish. You watch them connect, and
it's
magic.
It's like when you're really excited about something and you call up your friend and then you're like, oh my God, this happened, and da da da, and they're on the phone going, oh my God, that's awesome. You instantly feel lifted and energized. But if the other person on the phone was like, oh, that's great, like, how would that affect, like, it completely, your self-expression then just goes, ugh, shut down.
So, and this is what we do in our relationship, and it's something to be aware of, because this is what we're responsible for. And you can't make people responsible. There's no, it's a choice whether you do this work
Everyone's
or not.
got free will.
Yeah.
And a choice to do what they want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is coming to a time where people are starting to want to have deeper connections, wanting to connect more, want to be able to communicate from their heart and not from their head.
Yeah.
And this is what we see, the new template. This is what we're creating. This is what we're building. This is what is happening in the world, because the old way of communicating isn't working.
It's just
from the
not
mind
working.
and blaming and make fault. It's like, this is where we need to be able to hold space, have compassion for one another, understand, and
where people are coming
from. It's like, if like, this is so powerful, and it's kind of like everyone says it, but if you walk a mile in that person's shoes, you would be and do and see the world exactly in the same way. You would do the exact same thing. There's no other way of doing it if you experience exactly what they experience.
Absolutely.
So if we can have compassion in our relationships for the other person and actually go, wow, why isn't he communicating? Let me get into his world. Let me find out, or let me get into her world and go, what is going on for my partner? Why are they shut down? Instead of like, why isn't he communicating? What a jerk. Or why is she being like this? Like, find what insecurities are triggering in your woman for her to be needy. Like, actually get interested. Sit down and have those conversations.
Ask some powerful questions.
Yes.
Even just for yourself.
Yes.
Ask yourself those powerful questions. And what you sort of just said brings me back to my ex-partner. And that's, you know, like, it wasn't till after we separated that I had to and go through a whole healing process, but I actually started to see why he did the things that he did, and how, you know, how that all worked out. And, you know, I had to have compassion for him in that space.
Yeah.
You know, and forgive. You know, and that's another thing with communication, like, you know, but that's another topic.
But it is, it's forgiveness. And that's all those resentments we need to talk about. All those things that aren't, and this is the biggest thing, the things that we don't talk about, they come up in the relationship. So if you don't deal with them, you don't talk about them.
Whether you talk about them or not,
they're there.
They're there.
So, and it's learning, and this is, and it is challenging. It is challenging.
You'll feel like you're being pulled 100 different ways, and it's so challenging.
Yeah, that's why it's so important to have people that, and we've got our own mentors and our own coaches to support through our own relationship, because we have just as many challenges and we come up against stuff, and it's all part of life, right? It's natural. But the beauty of it, the more we become aware, it's how quick you get out of it. How quick you get out of it.
It saves a whole lot of drama. Like, there's so many instances where we've gone through different stages and we'd be like, oh shit, that could have lasted like a whole 2 weeks.
Easy, where we don't talk, where we hold resentment. And then the thing is, most of the time people don't truly let go.
No. They think they let go.
But it's like, yeah, but you really think that. So in a moment of heat, argument, someone says blah, ego blurts something out, and then we take that on like they really think that. But it's like, no, we just sweep that under the rug. But it's there in the background. Like, I know for myself, like, there's nothing that I hold on to what Annalie has ever said to me, because I know that's not her. I know that's not her soul speaking. I know that's her ego, that's her past, that's her wounds, and that's same for me, right? Whatever I say to her, she doesn't take it and hold it and walk around for it. Oh, Roman said to me, he really thinks that. Because there's no space next time for communication when we're holding all these stuff, and that's what we're going to cover in the next, the baggage that we carry around in a relationship, and that how it impacts our communication.
I think one other thing that I wanted to touch on was expectations and attachments. Yeah, that's a good one. Nice one. Like, especially when we expect our partner to show up a certain way. Whenever you have expectations, and what we've learned, and this is just in life too, not just in relationships, but if we're speaking about relationships, when we have expectations for our partner to show up a certain way and then they don't, we get angry. And it's more about the attachment that we have to that expectation, because how can you say it? Like, when you're attached to an outcome and it doesn't, you get disappointed.
Yeah, you get disappointed because you expect it to go that way, and then it doesn't.
It doesn't. So anything that doesn't look like your expectation, so whether it was, even if it was good, you know, like, even if it was good but it didn't meet your expectation, you're still disappointed, and you can't see the goodness there.
Because you're filtered through
your expectation and your attachment to that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It is, but it is a big thing. Attachment and holding on to how it's got to look and expecting things,
like
and it's got to be
control.
like this, and it's control.
Yeah.
And we actually did a video about
Yeah,
that
we
today,
did that.
Tony, about control and surrender, right? So keep an eye out for that. But is there anything else that you'd like that we had a look? We've got a little sheet here. I'll take a quick look.
Just going to check that we've covered all the points. I am. The sunset is beautiful, just coming on behind us. It's gorgeous here.
Oi!
He's back.
No, I think that's everything. I think
we've covered everything.
Because it's probably gone for a while again.
Yeah. And if you've got any questions, you know, about what we've raised today, like anything about communication.
Anything you're unclear about, anything you're unsure of, it's like, but.
Yeah, inbox us.
Inbox us or comment below. We can make another video. We can make more content from it. So we'd love to answer your questions. And also share, like, what are some of your challenges? What are you going through in your relationship? What are some blockages? Or what did you resonate with and take away and something that you're going to apply? Is it whether it's forgiveness, whether it's compassion or holding space or learning how to share what's moving? Because there's a lot that we covered tonight.
Yeah.
So comment below and say, like, what are you taking away? We'd love to know the value that you've gotten from this video.
Yep.
Yeah, and also we offer. Do you want to talk? Do you want to?
You were going to do it.
I was going to do it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
That's why I was waiting.
Yeah, we also offer. We have a few spaces available each month to offer people a 15-minute complimentary session to kind of look at these kind of issues. Like, what are you dealing with? Because I know in the video it's like it's hard to actually take it and apply it.
Yeah, and knowledge is knowledge.
Yeah.
And for us, what we've learned, it's really about the direct experience.
Yeah.
Like, because you could read a whole lot of self-help books, you could do all of that, and you know it in your mind.
Yeah.
But it's about bridging the head to the heart and allowing them to work together in a way that is in harmony with each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like after watching the video, if there's anything that came up, go, yeah, I get that, but my partner's like this. So let's deal with that in the 15 minutes. Let's have a look. Let's give you some freedom so you can actually communicate and have some freedom in your relationship. Because I know sometimes it can bring a lot of stuff up and go, yeah, but you don't know my partner, or she's like this, or he's like that. Yeah, it could be triggering some stuff. So if there's some stuff triggered, just comment below or just inbox us. Just comment 15,
the number 15, so we
15.
know what you're wanting.
So then we can inbox you and inbox you some links to how to book a 15-minute complimentary session with us. And it's really simple, it's really easy to do. So I know some people get shy, so inbox us, totally fine. We'll get in touch with you. But yeah.
And yeah, so I guess next week, join us next week, next Wednesday, the 8th of March, again, 7 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. We'll be looking at lack of role models and past relationships. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper because both of us have got a lot of experience in this. So we can dive deeper into triggers and things like that we sort of touched on this video.
And again, communication is going to come into, because it's all going to be interwoven. As you can see, communication is a big...
It's a massive topic. And we could talk about communication for hours or days even. But yeah, we just wanted to touch on the subject and just bring to light some of the challenges that people are moved through or people are going through at the moment. Yeah.
Awesome.
So thanks for tuning in, and if you're watching the replay, thanks for watching.
Thanks, and I just want to say, look, what a ripper! Like,
I know.
I'm just
the sunset.
stoked.
It's gone now, but it was beautiful. We love this place.
Yeah, I'm just
get out in nature.
Yes.
All right, guys.
Is that it?
That's it.
You're complete.
We're complete.
Yay.
We'll see you
Awesome.
next week. Bye.
See you guys.